Hello, cheerleaders. How are we? One of those beautiful nights where you just sleep for a couple of hours. It was a nap. I don't know. I woke up. I wrote a bit. I did not read. I have been double checking some of the. I wrote an article the other day, so I've been checking it. And now I'm making a few videos at 5 o'clock in the morning. Not sure if today was one of those days where the rhythm of the night was boom, boom, bang. But I know yesterday was very. I don't know. Today's video is could talent be a connection with one's feelings slash in tune as in the thought process is eliminated. Um, what am I talking about? You know when somebody says you're talented, right? And there's always this battle between like talent versus discipline. And I like what does talent mean? As in he's capable? Well, okay, so like what does he's capable mean? How, not what does it mean? How does it work? How does capability work? And uh, I have I was reading a manga that was kind of like describing a lack of talent that was met with a daily regimen of like action and work and hard work in order for the individual to kind of like evolve. Not one, many actually. In fact, if anything, almost all of them are that. They always include like a character that is talented. Funny enough, the talented character is always kind of dumb, right? And the reason for that is the way I see it is kind of simple. He never had to process what to do. He just kind of like does things until they kind of work, or they already work and he doesn't know why, or she doesn't know why. So it made me ask my question, like, could talent actually be a connection with your feelings? And that's where the instinct kicks in, right? Because you kind of like, you're fully intuitively trusting movement before a mental process. And I say that because say that because it's not because I say that in a way that well, okay. So what I'm trying to do right now is acknowledge that I'm gonna go back to a conversation I had once. It's like the I for me is intention. I am, as in like I intentionally exist, right? Is isn't am from verb to be, right? Être, right? Je suis is from être, verb être in French. All right, let me Google it just to not be a dick about it. I am is from verb to be. An essential irregular verb in English. Yes, am is are, was, were. It's from verb to be. That's a to be, right? So I am is me intentionally being, or at the very least, that's what I'm. For me, the I is the intention behind whatever you are. So there's me, myself, and I. So like me is Tariq is what you're looking at right now, and myself is basically like where does Tariq initiate anything? Kind of like there has to be a translation from somewhere. And I'm intentional, so I have to. There's action that happens that's mental because of my intention. There's action that happens that's basically physical because of my intention. And there's action that happens that's emotional because of my intention. And there's a synchrony between these three, or at the very least, there's a trust. right? Like in synchrony, we can find a way to synchronize, and that for me is building trust. And if anything, I feel like that separation allows allows a lot more objectivity. It's like, why am I feeling this way is a thought process towards a feeling, or why did this come out this way is basically the response, or why am like, I don't know, when you paint something and it doesn't feel good or it doesn't look good, if it doesn't look good, it's you mentally objectifying it, and if it doesn't feel good, it's you emotionally objectifying it. Like you're looking at it and you're like, like it's a response, right? It's a response to the action, one action. Like no, in any of these three cases, the mental, the emotional, and the physical, you are expressing something, and you can use these three basically use each other in order to reflect. It very much is like, I thought this would feel good, it didn't, or I thought this would come out this way and it didn't. It's basically feedback to a thought process that resulted in an action and a feeling. And so one came before the other. And it again it depends. Sometimes you kind of like, when I see a dog, I instantly go and I have all these faces. So that basically is the initial response is not, oh, look, a dog. The initial response is because I saw a dog, and then I noticed the cuteness because of the dog, or a cat, or a hamster. Fucking love animals, man. Fucking gorgeous. We feel the same way about family sometimes, about lost friends. It's like instinctively, we kind of like, we either react emotionally first, and then the thoughts and the actions come after, or react mentally first, which is most of our days. And most of what we do is more mental than thought process, than emotional and action based. And so the idea behind talent is like, when you're looking at somebody that's talented, I feel like the thought process is kind of like relinquished to a certain point, or at the very least, it comes later. It's like, a talented person does something based on a feeling, but it doesn't feel first before it acts. It kind of acts, right? So like, when you see, and I feel basketball players, I go back to them because there's back to the basketball field is very like close. I don't know. It's small. It's not like football. And the reason I'm saying that is because uh, you can tell the players that are completely flowy, that are not thinking, that their brain is processing everything at a certain kind of like in the moment, everyone in the moment, every like jump, every bounce, every move, and they set the pace for the entire actual like for the game, and these players, for example, are the players that are in the zone, right, in the flow of things. They're kind of like exuding talent, expressing talent like crazy. And that is because like their existence within their thought is kind of like done, right? It's kind of like pushed to the side, or kind of like, I don't know. It's because if I trust completely my body and my actions, do I have to think about anything? Do I have to be present? I just am an observer. And I talk about that a lot, especially when you're doing things like what? Sorry, and I talk about that a lot, especially uh, when I tried woodworking. And no, number one task I had was to kind of like smooth the surface of the wood. And at first, I was kind of like thinking, what do I have to do? And then I realized the more you kind of like use the sandpaper, that wood changes color, and as it changes color, you kind of like you can tell which shade is basically the shade that's a bit more, which shade is the shade that's smoothest or the best you could do, because after that you're kind of like digging deep into the wood, and it's no longer kind of like you're just shaving away from it. And so like the minute you kind of figure these basic things out, or the minute I did, I no longer am thinking, I'm just kind of like observing, and that was like 3 hours of work without me having to think about anything, just completely just like looking at the wood, like until every surface has been kind of like smooth. And by the end of it, like my dad was like, "You really have talent for woodwork," and I was like, "That has nothing to do with talent because I had nothing. I did not. All I did was kind of like observe and notice and use that as a point of feedback instead of my thoughts." Because I could have thought, "Oh, I can do this and I can do that, and I can try this and I can do that," which I did at first. But at one point, there was no point to think of anything else because I'm not building the chair. I'm just fucking smoothing it out. It's literally one action, and you have to do it the most efficient as possible. If like that was to be translated to like building a chair, which requires multiple different elements in order for between chopping the wood, smoothing the woods, measuring, and all kinds of like pre-designed things, then I'm not sure if I was talented, but I'm sure I could have reached a point where talent would actually come out of my work or would be an expression of my work. And so back to the video, could talent be a connection with one's feelings slash in tune, as in thought process is eliminated? And I feel like the talented among us, or the people that start off talented, are the people that don't really consider how they do things. They just kind of like they trust themselves enough, and that's where passion kind of like kicks in because your point of focus is beyond what you're doing, but it's more about what you are doing. No, wait, it's beyond what you, it's beyond how you're doing it, but it's more what you are doing. So if I'm playing basketball, I'm not really thinking how I'm bouncing. And you can awkwardly see that with people that kind of don't have talents. They're trying their best to kind of like move their hand in order for the bounce to happen. But the people that have talent don't think, they just like throw the ball and then follow it, and eventually they kind of pick a certain rhythm. And I feel that train of thought kind of like hinders our approach. Although in a way you kind of have to think about how there has to be so there's always a balance. There's definitely always a balance. But I think it really is the absence of thoughts, and that only happens when you're basically when you're when your mind, your body, and your your emotions are harmonious. But like saying that requires you to build that trust. And if you look at these three, like you have to build that trust by doing more things, action, in order for you to build confidence. And then on one side as well, you kind of like have to listen to your emotions in order for you to feel heard. When you feel heard, you kind of like understand, you get that feedback, and you translate that into the action and the thought. And then as well, you kind of like reflect on your thoughts and where are they coming, and slowly but steady, kind of like expand the trio and the space in between in order for harmony to get to become a thing. I don't know. It's a video, guys. I fucking love you. It's 5 o'clock in the morning, but yeah, I'm doing this. Bye.